You're tuned into 9 to 5 Work Rebels with your host, Ebony Gale. This podcast is sponsored by the PRCA's Race, Ethnicity and Equity Board. Visit prca.org.uk/REEB to find out more.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gems in Comms series special, brought to you by 9 to 5 Work Rebels podcast. And I am your host, Ebony Gale. So today I am super excited to be speaking with the lovely Barbara Phillips, who is a founder of Brownstone Communications, where she advises organizations on how to create purpose-led, racially inclusive cultures and to retain their best people. Barbara is also on the PRCA board and is the chair of the Race and Ethnicity board at the PRCA as well. Welcome, Barbara. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Ebony.
You are most welcome. I couldn't wait to get you on here. So I really want you to start off by telling us about yourself. So there's a bit of a background for those who are just tuning in. This is a podcast where I am giving people of color who are working in the comms industry their flowers for working in the industry and, fighting the good fight. So a good, well done to you, Barbara, because you've been in, you've stuck in, you're still here. You've done some great things here as well. So a big kudos to you. So let's start off with you telling us a bit about yourself and what you do now.
So right now I've got several hats, which I think as you become more experienced and you realize that the meaning of what you do, it's not just what you do, it's the impact and what purpose, it's going to have in society. You tend to find, I found that I haven't found that in one particular role. So I do a combination of, I suppose you call me a portfolio worker. So I could do a combination of, I do contracts, usually change and transformation with some DEI or racial equity thrown in. I do training. I'll train in racial equity and anti-racism. I'll also do some training in personal branding. And then I will do your kind of straight up comms, usually strategic comms kind of roles, where I'll advise, usually board level, just on employee engagement, keeping them, what a psychologically safe culture might look like if they don't have one. And often I'll work with their change people or their HR people who are already on the journey. And I've just been brought in to give them some guidance and make sure they don't forget about race, because I always bring up race because no one else will. So I think that's my job. I've decided. Because everyone says, race, and I go, no, race, absolutely need to talk about it. So
absolutely. Oh, that's brilliant. No, thank you for that. And just as a bit of background, have you always wanted to work in comms? Did you fall into it? How did you get into it?
I fell into it, but I think if you check go back to school, I left school a million years ago, but I checked my favorite subjects were English. I was like a class representative. I was a games captain. So I was always in that people talking, that side of it was fine. The communication side of it was always there, but we weren't calling it that then. So I was really blessed with that. And then later on, when I was studying, I used to do media sales to help supplement my because at those times we didn't have the big student debt. You just had like a piddly grant, and then you had to make up the rest yourself. So I used to sell media, and when I was selling, I found I'd sell media, and I'd often sell sponsorships. Now, when I was selling my sponsorship, my product, my assets, I found I always had loads of good ideas for them as to how to promote them and have this extra feature and have that, so I was really good on the promotional side. And the clients always used to get me in to, only buy the sponsorship, but help them with the promotional side. So I just started getting more and more into the promotional side, which is far more interesting because I just had so many ideas, how to speak to clients, how to, tap into audiences, add this little feature and it'll work, add this little feature. And I kind of slid into it that way. But the area I was in first was always, was actually in the African Caribbean community first. So one of my first clients for Brownstone was Afro Hair and Beauty. And then I worked for, back in the day.
I remember going there when I was younger. I was excited.
Yes, it was the thing, wasn't it?
It was.
So I did PR and promotions on that. I knew somebody who knew somebody, so I helped out with that. And then I had other clients like Sport England. I introduced them to the whole idea of, at the time, we used to call it equalities. And then it changed to diversity and inclusion. That's how old I am, because before diversity and inclusion, it was actually just equalities. So I helped lots of public. I did a little bit with the Met, I did some Sports England, and then some other. I did a combination of Black organisations who wanted a more mainstream kind of profile, and I went for the public sector organisations who needed to broaden out their audience.
Right.
Let them understand it's not just, white and English and middle class, or who live in certain, you've got a whole multicultural. London is the most multicultural city in the UK. And if you're a public sector organisation, with budget that's come from my tax pounds, you need to be reaching everybody. So I did that. There's the first 3 or 4 years of Brownstone, and then a big bank in the city, it just took me in because it was just seduced with all their big money.
And big money.
It was like, whoa, I went in-house. And then I actually found that I preferred being in-house more than PR side because, as back in the day, as a Black person, I didn't really know you were Black necessarily, but trying to get stories into publications, that were about Black organisation, I don't know what possessed me. That was the hardest.
That was hard to do.
Because they would just either mock you or ridicule you, or they just weren't interested. They just, whatever angle you tried. And I say to them, well, what aspect of this are you interested in? And they didn't want to say none because it's about Black people or about Asian people or about non-white people. So that was really hard. And I found that really tough. So when I went in-house to do kind of head of comms in a bank, even though it was a similar environment, at least I had my captive audience, and at least I started on that long journey of change and what culture could be, and saying to people, it doesn't have to be like this. It don't have to be hiding because you're gay. You don't have to not let anybody know that you've got a disability. That work, it shouldn't be like that. We should be able to be ourselves, and that's back in the dark ages. So I kind of started there surreptitiously.
Oh, wow. Really, really interesting, though, the journey in, and also just you touching on the having to try selling the stories back in the day and having the reception that you'd want to get. I suppose for things like the bigger ones, like the more public-facing organisations, you'd be kind of okay with, but Black organisations specifically.
But it was harder. A strand, wasn't it? I was going about multi-ethnic and, diversity, and that we are all different, we come from different backgrounds. Even just getting them to say, people speak different languages. People have different ways of expressing themselves. So when you're doing, I do some work with some of the big public sector, it's just to remember there's a certain type of language doesn't include everybody. If you, even up to today, if you phrase things in a certain way, people will feel, well, that's not for me because you phrased it a certain way. So it's just making the language more inclusive. And then just reminding them that everything you do, this is why I went for public sector, because their money was my money as far as I was concerned. So I need to see myself somewhere in amongst, councils, always the same. They're not bad generally, but the people who were running them, and I don't know if it's improved much, but the people who were running at the time really didn't think that was anything to do with them. That was like a little bolt on. Caring about the people who didn't look like them really was, we're talking about late 90s, early 2000s, it really was nothing to do with them so much. It's like, if I felt like it, I could, if I'm feeling good. And that's where most people start. It's like an add-on, wasn't it? When they're on their diversity journey, they think it's an additional. It's like, it's at the centre. It's really at the centre. We're more there now, so that's great.
Yeah, we definitely have moved a little bit forward, I'd say. Okay, so moving slightly into personal stories. So I always like to share lived experience stories. So, my first question is always about when did you become aware of your ethnicity? So I always talk about a time of myself when I was growing up, about 11 years old, and I was going to secondary school, just made that transition. And then I started hearing about Chelsea Smilers and, that they would come and cut you across your face, and, they were running off Black and brown people. And so I was 11 years old, heading down towards Old Kent Road, which at that point was quite racist area, heading towards Germany. So I used to be kind of petrified going on the bus to school, very much aware, but that was very much a stark memory for me. So what was it for you?
Girl, it's from day dot, because I grew up in Ladbroke Grove, Notting Hill, which was always multicultural, but it was always quite divided. I grew up with NF, skinheads. We just had the leftovers from the Teddy Boys. I mean, we had my parents' generation when they came over in Ladbroke Grove, used to be fighting with Teddy Boys, still throwing bottles at them or what have you. So they would, even they weren't all the Notting Hill riots, but there used to be lots of pitched battles with, because they really didn't want us here. So my mum and dad was telling me about, this from day one. And what they really did say to me was, everybody's the same. Everybody's what's the same. So, everybody has to do what's, we're all the same, and it's better than you. And the N-word, my sister and I used to hear the N-word every Sunday, because when we used to go up to church, so imagine back in the day, so
every Sunday,
we used to go up to walk to our house was at the bottom of the road and the church was at the top of the road. Right. And we had to run the gamut of these houses that were all occupied by, let's say, people who weren't very inclusive. And we used to just meet, and we were all dressed up in our Sunday best, holding hands with our little gloves and what have you. As we do with our little hats, as we do now. Like back in the day, you used to dress your children
for church.
Basically, for church.
I did.
We used to walk up there, and we just used to hear N. It was N all the way up and all the way down, and we just got used to it. Honestly, it's it's like.
How old were you then? Would you say
we were about 8 and 10?
Ooh. Oh, awful! Absolutely awful.
It's probably why I'm just so rock hard now, isn't it? It's like you can use that word, and I'm like, hey, what?
It
Anything
just
else?
runs off you now, right?
Been listening to that word for very, very long, for several decades.
It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
It is.
I think that these are grown-ups who are shouting at these things. Yeah, children,
and they get their kids out as well. It's really sad for the children, because that's what we know. All of the racism is learned. This is why I take the stance I do today, because all of racism is learned because those children didn't know about it till their parents told them about it. And the same way you can buy into it, and this is a little message to our leadership in comms, you can opt out of it. You don't have to practice all of the stuff you're doing. It's a choice. It's always been a choice. So I don't know what they've done with their life, but I pity them, because it probably won't. It might have got them far, but I'm sure some of them must have had some realizations at some point. But that's not really
that's not
great
okay.
way to be.
That is not the way to be. Absolutely
all
not.
All of it's learned. All of it. The homophobia, the homophobia, it's all learned.
Yeah.
Like, children don't. The only thing that children have innately, if you have, there's 2 schools of practice. If you did linguistics, I did linguistics at uni. Is some say that language skills are innate. Some say language skills are learned. That's the only big debate there should be. The rest of it is learned.
It's learned behaviour. No, I completely agree with you. Absolutely.
Somebody taught you how to.
Kids don't come out of hating. That's not what happens. So it's definitely taught. So moving on from that. So have you felt like your race or ethnicity has held you back in your career?
100 and billion, zillions, quintillion, quintillion %. Whatever those are, 5 million noughts. I mean, I haven't let it, but it has, if that makes sense. Because I was aware so early, like one of my first roles, I was, before I got into comms, it was just like a Saturday job or what have you. And, everyone had their Saturday job, and all the Black people used to come to when I was on the till, they all used to come to me because I'd smile, I'd say, hello, how are you? La, la, la. And no one would do that. They're taking their money. They wouldn't even get basic courtesy. So there always used to be like a long, long queue on my till. So it's just a little bit of interaction.
Yeah.
So I think absolutely. And I know, because my mum was quite outspoken, my dad was they're both passed now. My mum especially was very outspoken, and she used to stand up for Black people's rights, women's rights. She didn't want to take any crap from anybody. And, she instilled that in all of me and my 3 sisters. So they're very, strong women. So when I went into work, I wasn't ready to take your racist nonsense. It was pushback from day one. It's like, hello.
Brilliant. No,
it's like, no, I'm sorry. I don't think that's acceptable, and I would go and speak to the manager and say, no, that person can't talk like that to me, because we're all equal.
That's amazing.
So that has its pluses, but it also has its minuses, because people don't want to hear that.
No, I get that.
There are lots of jobs where I just said what I had to say, and then I literally got my coat, because I know there's no future there for me, but that's okay.
Yeah, we don't want to be where you're not celebrated anyway.
Well, no, exactly. And before we were talking in those terms, it was definitely one door closes, another one opens, and I think we all have to understand, for young people coming in, if it's a no, because my mum was definitely one of those, a lot of Caribbean parents are listen to your gut, listen to your spirit, if you don't, as you said, it's good energy and good vibes and what have you. If you feel that it's not good and you feel something's going on, say your piece, but be ready to leave, because you don't get a second chance at all. I think it's sadly similar today. So I'd say I've been aware of it and I haven't let it hold me back, but by the same token, I'm not going to bury it. I was always bringing my best self to work. I was always bringing myself to work, and that's how it held me back, because at the time it wasn't acceptable. For only till very recently was it really acceptable.
So true. Absolutely true, because this whole thing about bringing yourself to work is more of a recent thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is recent.
As we know, this is recent. Independent.
Yourself had to be like them, a brown version of
Assimilate.
them. That's what they meant. Bring my version of what I think Black people should be. That's who you can bring to work. When you bring your whole full self, they're like, oh, too much.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So you say definitely, but you definitely didn't let it hold you back, which is good. So have you ever experienced or witnessed racism in the workplace, and how was it handled?
Oh, 100%. I'm sorry to say, I was counting back before this, and literally, with the exception of one, I've had one manager who I didn't think was racist, and we are still friends.
Okay.
Everyone else, it's every single role, every single job, going back decades. It's, it might not, and we weren't calling it microaggressions then, but that was because I was Black, because, the lady over there with blonde hair could, have a fit. She could roll on the floor. She'd be effing and blinding. She had a bad day, and everyone would be going, oh, she had a really bad night. She split up her boyfriend, and I might just go, and I'm getting a written warning. So you start to think, okay, differences there. So I'd say it's pretty much everywhere, because it's not because, and I think people have to understand, it's not because everyone was setting out to be, today I'm going to be super racist. People have to understand institutional and structural racism. They have to understand it's baked into corporate structure and corporate, culture. That's why everyone just thought they were acting normally. But normally in corporate UK, it's very racist. It's very exclusionary. It's homophobic. It's Islamophobic. It's all of it's ageist. It's fattest, I even call it. People get body shamed at work,
Absolutely.
So, and the bullying and harassment was just, there. So I think that that's why people used to hate going to work on Mondays. It was that culture. It wasn't the job. And that was acceptable. So I'd say it's been in every job, in every way, with the exception of, I had one bit of respite from one amazing line manager I had, and we got on really well. And when she left, I left about 2-3 months later, because it all came, pouring down. So I think I know I've spoken to Black and Asian people who've said they haven't experienced it at work. I just start laughing. I say, okay then. Because maybe it hasn't been, no one comes up and calls you an N-word to your face.
Sometimes it's microaggressions, isn't it? And they're not even.
It's microaggressions. And then I'll say to them, they say, oh no, I haven't any at work. And I say, okay, how long you been there? And they say 10 years. I said, how long you been at that level? And then I think, okay, and what about people who come after you? Oh, look, they're up there. But you haven't had it, have you? So
that's what I find.
It's not, N-words in your face.
No, it's not. It's subtle, isn't it? It's promoting other people above you, and it's
procedures, it's processing. It's every time you open your mouth, you go on a pip. Every time, one time my mouth, and I really, I did it by email. I was constructive. I said, as a department, can we do more to serve our clients internally? Because, where's our strategy? We seem to be very tactical. And I know we've got this edict from, on high. It was a big American firm, international firm, I won't name them. But we had this edict from on high and from talent saying, we were in internal comms and talent. They were saying, create programs to get people engaged. We are a global organization all over the world. And I said, we're doing this, but I'm finding we're a bit UK centric and, blah, blah. And I just wrote this and I took it to another director and I said, do you think this is too much? She said, no, that's good. I get all your points. They're considered. I understand you're passionate. You really want us to do the best. Gave it to my line manager. I was on a pip. I ended up on a pip. Yeah, it just wound. It went slap. Who do you think you are?
Wow.
How dare you talk to me, and then it ended up. But that's another story. I fought that.
I was going to say, really, that sounds like something.
There's strategies for that, because I knew that was going to happen, because they had a reputation of doing that. Everyone in that department, the gay guys was terrible. There was somebody who was just from she was Canadian, but she was just really, really tall, and she used to just feel they used to body shame her. It was all there. Wow. It was all there.
So Black, Asian, body shaming, everything.
Everything, all the isms. So
it's literally in the post.
All present.
Wow.
And this is what I say when I'm working with leaders now, which is why I only want to work with leaders. There's John Amici says, the great psychologist, the Black guy used to play in the NBA in basketball. He says, your culture is determined by the worst behavior you will accept. Now, they let her get away with this because she was great and everybody loved her. Well, the hobnobs loved her and what have you. But the point is, when I'm working with leaders now, it's like, where's the accountability?
Yeah.
If somebody's over there, the clients might love them, but if they're really bad racist, you have to say, sorry, you can't be in our organization, because you can be that good. Just lose the racism. You can be that successful, lose the, homophobia. You can be that creative. Yeah, exactly. But nobody tells anybody in our industry you need to go. And that's where we are. There's been progress.
Yeah, right.
But no one's saying, where's the accountability? This is why you'll always hear me say it's a choice. You're choosing to let that person, knowing how they behave. It's like one of the royal family, who I won't name because I don't have a big lawyer, who's been allowed back into the fold.
Yeah,
they know exactly what he's like. They know exactly what he's done, but they're still saying, yeah, that's okay. Still come on in.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgraceful. And then
it is
disgraceful. And even in your situation, the examples you just given, I take it because you're saying it was a while ago. It was obviously none of them were handled well by the sounds of it, were they?
No, nobody was handling anything, because back in the day when I first started work, HR really it was personnel then, because I'm an old woman, right? So it was personnel, and they really were supposed to look after personnel, i.e. the employees. Okay. But from about 2008 onwards, when there was, there's a major crash. Even before then, maybe, but I noticed human resources people, professionals, nothing personal, but I'll have to say what I see is they're just interested in looking after the company. They're interested in they're not really there for the employees at all.
I agree with you.
So when you go to them, that's when they start, we weren't calling it gaslighting them, but people were saying to me, are you sure? I remember one person, I can't name her because I haven't got a good lawyer, but I'll never forget her name and her face. She said, are you sure, Barbara? I said, yeah, I'm X years old and I've been working for X amount of years, and I'm absolutely positive that was racially motivated. I'm the only Black person in the team, and I'm the only person getting this kind of treatment. I'm one of the most senior, so I absolutely don't think it's anything else.
Absolutely. And even that to me is quite ridiculous, that we have to go through so much to justify what we go through. It's constant, mentally it can be such a drain, because you're forever fighting. We're just forever fighting for ourselves, and then you have to go to work, deal with nonsense, then get gaslit at work. It's just unbelievable.
And that's what I've been saying. It's an actual, whether it's written or unwritten, it's an actual system, if you like, because they wear you down with that. And while you're doing that, your performance can't drop, because as soon as your performance, they're on it and they're saying, right, knew it, it's you, because you're not good enough. And that's not it at all. I'm getting 10 times more pressure than anyone else. Day in, day out, I have to watch every email. I have to check it, spell check it 6 times. I get somebody else to sense check it, before I could, just to do normal things, because that pressure is on you. That's no way to exist in a job.
Yeah, it isn't. And I was going to ask you, but it seems like there has been probably plenty of times. My next question is, was there ever a time where you wish you spoke up about something? But for me, I feel like you do speak up about things. So.
I always did.
Yes, you do.
I always did.
Is there a time when you is there a time when you did speak up and you have self-advocated, in particular about racism? You've given us a couple of examples anyway.
Yeah. I do it all the time. And, sometimes there'll be roles where, I'm a human like everyone else, where you've got bills to pay, you're going through whatever, you're not flush with money, and I was just biting my tongue for as long as I could. But then as soon as I thought I can't take it anymore, because what I am blessed with is it's a job. My parents said to me, once you've had the first job, you can get another job. It's a job.
Yeah.
It's not your life. They meant to make you feel it's your life. you know, and I was also blessed with not defining myself through my role, because in my coaching, I've helped a lot of people who define them whole persona through their job. And then when the job went,
they lost,
they're lost.
Yeah.
They're lost. So I never did that. It was always a job, and it was a means to an end. And it's thank you for the money, but I got things to do with it. That's very nice. So I have, you know, I've always spoken, and there have been times where, I remember in this same place, I spoke up for everybody. I had to speak up for everybody because I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever, but I was also mature enough in my career that they couldn't, you know, I'd already directed my own career to where I was to get that role. You know, I'd already led my own direction. So I got to a level, and I also knew that I wasn't going to get past that level. You know, it was just director level, and I wasn't going to get anywhere. It doesn't matter where I went. I just knew I wasn't going to get. And I'm glad for all the, you know, Black and Asian people who get director, you know, or a senior director, or even executive director, what have you. Great. But I knew at that time that was my head of director was my peak. And I've had like 15 jobs at that level. Yeah. Because, do you know what I mean? So I think we,
as like a glass ceiling there at one point.
Well, cement roof, as somebody called it. You know.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to be, I think we need to be more conscious, and I think, you know, you need to look at your environment. And I said to all my nephews and nieces, whatever your job is, don't think you can bounce in there like Johnny next door. Do you know what I mean? You have to have, once you've got this, you need a strategy. You can't behave the way, sad, but you can't just do what all your mates are doing. You know, you can't do that. You don't have that. That's white privilege, I'm afraid. You don't have it. So you need to be thinking about
better, but really that's the minority of companies that have got that kind of, you know, they're kind of edging towards that, but not completely.
But you need to go in as a, you know, as a new, you need to be prepped. As a new practitioner, you used to go in, you need to demand, where's your DE&I? Talk to me about your culture. You know, what types of, who's leading the organization? Who's making the decisions? How do people get promoted? They need to be asking those sorts of, because it all comes out then. They put the nice brown faces. I remember I was in this one place, they kept saying to you, oh, Barbara, do you want to be in the, you know, the on the recruitment side? I said, no, thank you. And said, oh, look, we're going to have some cameras in that day if we get you that day. I was sick that day. I refused to come in. If you're not using my brown face to lure people in and then come into this hellhole, you know, I literally had to be sick that day. So they wouldn't just happen to catch me at my desk.
I get you.
Disrespectful.
Anyone who's done that, I've done it before. I know what you mean. I get it.
Yeah, it's like no, you're not using me.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because when I did that, I wasn't really thinking about it like that. But because in that organisation, they did have some black faces, but only a sprinkle who were higher at the time.
It's how they're treated. You could have 1,000 black faces, but you know, what level are they at? How are they treated?
That's exactly what I would say. What level?
I'm saying it's not that. We are so past representation. Representation is good, but it's the beginning. And that's why I don't really do diversity, to be honest. I do inclusion and I do equity, because you can be diverse. You know, you can have an Irish, Spanish, you know, Welsh. That's diverse in nationalities, but you're not really helping me in the racism side, are you? So it's really equity and inclusion, including everybody.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you on that one. So another question I have for you, Barbara, is about code switching. Now, do you feel really, as people of, you know, as a black woman, you know, can we go into the workplace with our authentic voice? Do you think we can really have that? Or do
I've never
forever? There's
two things that people think I'm bonkers. I've never had imposter syndrome, and I've never thought I've code switched. And I'll explain that. Imposter syndrome, absolutely, because I know how hard we have to work to get there. And I know if there was any other white person, they would have given them the job. So if I've got the job, I know I must be really good. So I don't do imposter, because then I look around and and most of my career, I've been first and only, you know, woman of color, black person, whatever, manager. So I know if I'm in there, I'm sorry, I must be the cat's pajamas, because there's more out there that don't look like me. If they were any good, they'd have this job, because that's how it works. That's my imposter syndrome. Never did that, because I thought I'm really good. And also I know, you know, we study hard. We've got our qualifications. We're overqualified for most things. So, and now code switching, I never did. I think I might have, you know, I've got my casual talk at home. You know, my parents from the Caribbean. We speak a bit of Creole. a bit of dibbly-dabbly when you get home, but not pure code switching. The language I use at home is what I use at work. I'm sure over the years, my language as my vocabulary is increased. And before I studied linguistics, obviously when you study language, then you have a better understanding of it, and I think it just makes the way your articulation is better. But I wouldn't say code switching. I would say the way I speak to obviously people at work used to, it's all the same now, would be a bit of manager speak. We all have that. You have to doff your cap a bit, and not speak a bit softly to your line managers that much, but not completely. There's a Barbara at work, and when you comes out of work, it's a completely different way of talking and behaving. Not really, no.
Right. No. Okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting because I find that I'd say I definitely code switch going into the workplace, particularly starting out in my career. At home, I'm much more relaxed. I'd say now I don't. I'm much more comfortable with myself. But in the workplace, I was very much, P's and Q's. At home, much more relaxed, drop into my little Caribbean and might do a little pat.
That's right.
But coming back into the workplace, I would definitely use the code switch. So I think that's interesting.
It is. And you know what and I think that's just down to my parents and the way that, especially my mum, raised us, is that if you're proud of your heritage, and my parents are Dominican, and if you're proud of lovely little, I love Dominican, we had the maps on the wall and speak the Creole and, eat the food and at home, and it's all lovely. And we were really proud to be Dominicans. When I go to work and people are talking about I put mine in as well. So my parents are Caribbean, and in the Caribbean, la, 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 because I think it deserves to be there. I'm not, a lot of, Black people stay silent because it's not about England and whiteness. And I say, no, ours is just as, because that's the way I was brought up. And I'm as I get older, that's a real blessing, because it's like, my parents are Caribbean and we don't do that. And actually, when I remember once somebody said to me exactly that, I bet you when you get home, you speak really nicely, Barbara. And when you get home, I bet you it's really Cockney. I said, oh, no one speaks Cockney in my house because I'm the Caribbean. I said, we don't have any Cockney in our house. Yeah. I said, no, we either have the Queen's English or we have Creole. I said, there is no Cockney. They can actually, that's their idea is, it's really nice now, but what you like when you get home. I said, if it's going to be anything, it will be a different language completely. It'd be a completely different language completely.
That's hilarious.
This podcast is sponsored by the PRCA's Race, Ethnicity and Equity Board. Visit prca.org.uk/REEB to find out more.
So we were just speaking about code switching and, the importance and how that affects us. So for me, you were saying you didn't necessarily feel the need to do that. But also interesting what you said about, the comments about speaking well, because I had an example like that when I used to work for the General Medical Council. So I worked in their press office, obviously dealing with high profile doctors and their misconduct. I always remember getting a call from one of the doctors. I was helping him with a query. And then at the end, he was just like, oh, very, very posh doctor. He was talking about his in his penthouse and blah, blah. He's like, oh, thanks so much for your help. What was your name? And then I said, oh, it's Ebony. Ebony, are you coloured? This is what I got. Okay. I'm shocked.
No, I'm not coloured. I don't have colour.
What I said, I'm not coloured. I don't turn purple or green.
No.
And he was just like, oh, you're so well spoken. It was just like, oh, really? Thanks. Yeah. And I was younger at the time as well. So I was taken aback. But obviously at the same time, not, because it's like you expect some of these things. I've seen some questionable things from, some of the constituents I had to deal with. So it was just like, wow, this is what you guys think. It's just shocking, really.
It's true. And, there's and it might be a generational thing, because I'm a couple of generations older than you, but parents who came, in the 60s and 70s to the UK made a point of making sure their children could speak properly, because they had to speak properly to get here. Everyone had their little ting and Creole at home, but really both knew you had to speak nicely or speak properly, at least the Queen's English, if you wanted to get anywhere. And, a lot of, I don't know how much they do that now, but probably not that much. But at the time, it was really important that you could. Yeah. So you could go in for an interview, even get a Saturday job. If you can't make yourself heard and understood and articulated, nothing was going to help you, because the racism was always there. Some people don't, some parents don't think it's important, don't think they have to. But, I certainly have always found that important, because we are communicating.
Yeah.
And this is before we knew that we were in this profession called communications. It was benefits for people understanding, when you try and put your views across.
Absolutely. So for you, I was going to ask you, you're going to say from the start, I know this already, I can say, when did you become aware of the colour bias in PR and communications particularly?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I didn't mind being the first and only in all my comms roles because, that's been all my working life. So I was just used to that. I remember one of my first roles, I was the first Black person in the whole of Southeast England in that organisation. Again, I can't name them.
Oh my God.
I was the first Black person in the whole of Southeast England.
That is something.
They had some Asian people in the Midlands, and that was it.
That was it.
So, yeah, I was number one.
Afterwards, this is absolutely shocking.
Yeah. So that was so I was used to that, and that was fine. And I was, used to there might be a bit of hostility because we're invading their space. And I was, I'd been trained. Mum was like, you get to there, and they might not like you. Don't worry about them because everyone's is the same. So don't worry about them, and no one's better than you.
Yeah.
But I think it's only when I started to have ideas. I'm just one of those people who are. I've got, every 10 seconds they'll have a new idea. So I have loads of ideas. And I felt when we're sitting in a group and a team, I felt I'm equal. So when Sally's speaking up over there, Barbara's speaking up as well. And I used to get flat down. And I was like, couldn't understand first, well, hello, but she's saying, and I'm better spoken than her anyway. And I'm not shouting, I'm not being aggressive because I know that one. So, and that's when I realized, it's never gonna happen. And every time I'd be somewhere where there was a promotion opportunity, I wasn't even considered. I was like, get myself ready. It's like, no, I don't think you will. I remember once when I was in a contract and something else came up and there was a new role that came up that needed somebody of all my experience. It literally, the experience said you needed big corporate experience. Hello. You need to have worked here. Hello. Had specialty. Hello. I'm an NLP certified coach, a mediator, and all these things. And the person said to me, I did this whole presentation. I gave them strategy. I gave them comms plan. She didn't have that from anyone else. She just said, she was like, I don't think you've got the big city experience. And I just started laughing. I just literally went, okay, then. I said, okay.
You know exactly what it was at that point.
I know exactly. I haven't looked at hello. If you go onto my LinkedIn profile, all you're going to see is big brands. All you're going to see is FTSE 100. But I was like, okay. It was only like not so long ago. I was like, oh, okay then. And I said, gotcha.
Yeah, but Paul, you know your card. And actually, you're right. You don't want to be anywhere where you're not, respectful.
No, and that's why you'll see I just stuck to contracts now. I've been doing contracts for about a decade. Mainly it started because I knew after I can only take 3-4 months of a really horrible, nasty culture, then I need to go because life is too short, and it's just a job. Yeah. It's just a job and I'll get another one. So that's why I started just focusing on contracts. And then when I said, okay, contracts are better for me 6 months a year because I don't have to commit to, if it's a really nasty environment, I'll do what I need to do financially and then I'm off.
Yeah.
And now I'll do like really short ones and I've honed it into change and transformation because one, that's the most interesting. And two, that's when you can start talking about, when you do any kind of organizational change, any type of operational change, I said, there's going to be a change in culture and there's an opportunity for you to improve the culture and make it more inclusive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I stick with those ones now. But originally when people say, oh, why did you contracts? You can't say to these recruiters because people are so racist, I can only take 6 months of it and then I'm off.
Yeah. We should be able to say that. We should be able to say that because actually they need to know.
Yeah.
This is
I say that now. I say that now. But before it was just like, I've just had some, even in contracts. So like meant to be 6 months and they'd be 6 months and you go for renewal and there'd be this whole kerfuffle about renewing you because somebody decided 3 months ago you said something they didn't like and so I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah, no.
It's just a nonsense.
It is. And it's actually quite mentally draining,
It is.
Dealing with that and combating.
It is.
So I understand.
And that's why I say to people, if you don't have, I literally became an NLP coach. Mainly I was my first client because there was some stuff I needed to get through and there was no one I could talk to and I needed to, deal with it. So I dealt with it myself. So thank you. And then I started coaching other people. But I say to everybody, young or old or whatever, generation you are, you need to have an outlet. You need to, if no one, there was no one I could really talk to because no one really knew what comms was. They just thought, what's PR? It was just like office job. It was just an office job. So if you're in an office, you're not in a factory, you're in an office. That was kind of the extent of it. Yeah. So when I wanted to talk to people, and when I did just express things like the, constellation to my friends, they think, right, you're a VP in comms at this big bank. Why are you complaining? It's like, because you don't understand that, there's more to it. And people are just coming in from anywhere above me with less experience, and they just couldn't, They can't. So there's that. So you need an outlet, and whether it's a hobby, whether it's a pastime, really do that. And I strongly advise everyone to take a break, make a distinction from work. I mean, don't get me wrong. I could take it home and do some at work, but there's a distinction. I know this is work, and I know this is life. Yeah. And it's really easy to let the job isn't my life. Yeah. My life's always more important. If my daughter was sick, I'm missing that big meeting. Yeah. Big client meeting. Yeah, my daughter's sick. Yeah. It's a school play. I have one of her presentations. Yeah, I'm going to be there. But the client, but I'm still going to be there because she's going to be doing that once in her life. In her life, absolutely. Get your priorities right, because when people are frightened the way that corporate culture is, that they make you terrified if you miss. And how it works against people who are not black or brown is because they know if they suck up and they say the right things and they nod nicely and smile sweetly, they'll get a promotion. I always thought I wasn't going to get it anyway. I could be the most brilliant one anyway. So why am I sacrificing my life stuff because I'm staying in your organization? You don't want to promote me anyway for whatever nonsense you're coming up with. So why would I be missing my daughter's recital as well? Yeah. It's like I just let it free me. Yeah. So now I'm not going to get any further here. I'll stay here till I've done what I needed to do, or I get bored. But in the meantime, I've got a life, and the life is my focus. Thank you.
Yeah. I like that. And I always kind of subscribe to that because we work for a living. We don't live for work. So I think that's
100%.
That's very key. So I wanted to touch on your thoughts on allyship. So, what are your thoughts on it and what does it mean to you? And, what to you is a good example of allyship? Because some people don't like the term. Some people think it's just like, what are yours?
I don't think people really understand the depths of allyship. And I don't think people think that there's depths to it. There's layers to it. You can be, and the examples I always give when I'm training is, if you're standing on the sidelines watching somebody be abused, even though you're not doing the abuse, you're part of the abusing, you're part of the abusing. So if you want to be an ally, it means you're going to have to put yourself out and say to that person, and I've done it. I said, I'm really uncomfortable the way you speak. It was a gay guy. And I said, I'm really uncomfortable the way that you speak to him. Is there, he's not in my team. You're not my line manager, but we hear it in the office. And I find it really uncomfortable. That's the best I could do type of thing, and realize thinking, oh, you're a raging pig, but another story. So I think people underestimate how much of themselves they have to put in it. They think it's I'm with black people, yay, and then you go back to oh, that was I'm really sorry for you, Barb, I'm so sad that happened to you.
Then back to work.
That's not allyship. That's a bit of sympathy at best. So ally means you have to put yourself not in danger, but you have to make yourself uncomfortable. It also means you need to examine what's going on with you. You have to examine why you'll help me this much, but you won't help me that much. Yeah. You won't go all the way with me on my journey. You need to examine that in yourself, the biases and the prejudices in you. It says, if you don't want to put yourself out too much, then you're not an ally. So stop calling yourself an ally. Ally goes all the way. Yeah. My idea of an ally is it goes all the way. I've had one ally in work, so we're still friends. She was a line manager, and she just, let me do what I need to do. When she just like batting them off and saying, no, she's fine, she's great. And then I proved her right and said, she said, thank God, you always prove me. I'm always, speaking up for you. And then you always come through for me, because that's a bit of belief. So I understand but it means going all the way through, or just step back and just, be non-problematic. Yeah. You can be non-problematic, but you're not being an ally by saying, oh, that was really bad. Well, was that a microaggression? That was really, but that's not allyship.
No, exactly. I agree with you. I've had that where it was pointed out after the fact that, oh, I thought that was really bad. And
yeah, what were you doing at the time?
Yeah, you got to speak up. You picked up a bit earlier, but
exactly.
And I get that.
And if you're worried about your status, then you can't be an ally because the whole journey is uncomfortable. There's risk in all of it. As my employment record will show you. When I've said what I have to say and I'm not taking it anymore, I just have to move on. So there's risk in all of it, but there's also risk, and this is another thing I say when I'm training, is don't think that you can stand there and watch these horrible things happen and that it's not absorbing in you. There's not something going in subconsciously. Don't think that you're free of it because you're being non-problematic and you're turning your back. Subconsciously, you've absorbed all of that, and it'll out itself in the most inconvenient point of time. You might just have a big, one day you might think, oh God, can you stop doing that? Because you've seen it so many times, and that won't be great for you. So don't think you're getting off scot-free because you're seeing it and you're not participating in it, but you're not actually helping it either. Because the mind is brilliant, and the mind, it's absorbing everything, and your subconscious has made a note of that person was treating this person like that. Even though you're not doing anything, it's in there. That's why, again, it goes back to, it's a choice. It's a choice whether you step up and
I completely hear you on that, and I agree with your sentiments, absolutely. So moving a little bit into kind of your journey and what motivates you. So what does motivate you and what inspires you to keep going?
I think it's my role, and people who've been in comms as long as a couple of decades plus, I think our role is just to make sure that anyone who's coming behind us does not have to experience the same thing. I think that's our job. That's my only job now. That's why I just stick to racial. Until there's racial equities at such a level, or racism is such a level that it's really kind of personal, it's not institutional and systematic, which it is certainly in comms now. I think that's our job. That's what we should be doing. As a veteran, or whatever you want to call me, that's my job, because I'm that much closer to I'm here. Retirement's here. I'm here. You're over here. So of course, why should you endure the same nonsense that I did? What is the point of us being here? And I, without being melodramatic, I just go back to my ancestors. What did my ancestors endure so I could be here, so I could say no to that job, so I could get that job? I mean, it's a gazillion times worse.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking, I think that's what motivates me. And that's what keeps me going. That's why I will not deviate from racial equity, because it's like the last stand. You can't do D&I and not deal with racism. Sorry,
I know it gets all kind of swept into that, doesn't it?
That's why when we started REEB at the PRCA, when they asked me to chair it, I said, I'm only chairing anything to do with race. If it hasn't got race in the title, move along. I'm only interested in dealing with the racism in our industry. If we don't deal with that, nothing else is going to change. People try and they try and pull you over here and pull you over there. I'm like, I'm not interested. I'm only interested in dealing with racism. When that's dealt with to an acceptable level, then of course there's 9 other protected characteristics. Intersectionality. I'm 8 of those things already.
So,
and I can't take my race off and put it in a cupboard.
Exactly.
So,
race is definitely.
That's why you have to deal with it. Everyone's got a little shelter. Without racism, everyone's got a little shelter. You can hide you can hide your disability. You can change the way you speak. You can change the way you look. You can pretend your skin. You can change your social background. There's so many things you can do, but you can't do. So let's just deal with it. That's what motivates me. That's all I'm interested in doing now. I'm sure people think I'm a broken record, but clearly I don't care. That's my job.
I think it's great. I think it's admirable. It's great, and it's something that I'm also passionate about. So I feel you.
And I think people in our generation, my contemporaries, really, if they're not, I don't want to shame anybody, but you shouldn't be in this business 20 plus years knowing what it was like, knowing it's marginally better only from the last 3 years, and be quite happy for generations and generations to come and experience the same thing. I find that's unacceptable. In fact, when we launched REEB, one of the first interviews I did, and someone said to me, what would you say to encourage? And I said, I'm not encouraging any Black people to come into comms right now. I said, I'm not encouraging you until you fix up. I'm not encouraging you to come in, because why would I know it's what it's like. Why am I saying come in when I know what it's like?
Yeah.
Not everyone is fortunate they can coach themselves, or they had, a different kind of upbringing, and I can deal with it psychologically, and I had an outlet. Not everybody has that. And it's damaging. It's psychologically damaging.
Yeah, it is. Workplace, issues are damaging, particularly race issues. And the fact that the climate that we're living in at this point in time is triggering anyway. Just who we are is getting up.
I know, it's triggering. Yeah, it's the fascism, and then the gaslighting. So hello, we don't. You have fascist behaviours, but no. There's no people still saying in the year of our Lord 2023. There's no racism. We're making it up. We're just making it up.
That bit just
chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, I know that bit. I'm just like, all right, British media, continue to gaslight us as much as you like.
Yes,
but we're not buying it. It is absolutely
gaslighter in chief. That's why I used to call Boris Johnson the gaslighter in chief.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely is. So, going back a bit to your journey, what did you find the most challenging so far on your journey? Would you say?
I think it's been knowing my skills and capabilities, knowing what I can do. And I find it's quite challenging you have to create your own outlet, because often people won't give you those opportunities. So it's I enjoy the challenge, but I always see what the limitations are. And I think it's been quite challenging to have to make my own opportunities, if you like, make my own, people can come in, breeze into jobs. There's an opportunity, somebody breezes in, no effort. I'm struggling just to get a little way up, even though I'm 10 times better than they are and more experience and, all my degrees, doesn't really matter. So I think the challenge for me has been finding a way to still be creative and still enjoy comms.
Yeah.
Because, everyone you talk to has tried to get out of comms. That's why I went to be a coach. I was trying to get out of comms. Then I did mediation because I was trying to get out of it because it was too much, because I wasn't getting anywhere. And it, kept on sucking me back in, didn't it? So generally,
that's so interesting,
it is. And that's why I wanted to find, and then, you have to have a conversation with yourself. I love comms. I'm really good at it. I'm a natural communicator. Why am I doing something else? That's the conversation I had to have with myself. Why are they pushing me out of somewhere that I'm really good at it? And I'm just natural. That's why I've always been myself, because I'm a natural communicator, and I can do it and I can connect with people, etc., etc. And I always have all these ideas. So I just had to find different ways to be able to get some enjoyment out of it, some fulfillment out of it, because I wasn't usually, you'd get that in a, promotion, recognition, big payroll, blah, blah, blah. If you're not getting any of those things, the challenge is to find ways where you're still getting fulfillment from the industry when they're not showing you any love. I think that's a big so true. Challenge.
That's true. And that resonates. I completely get that. I get that. Yeah. Now, putting your hat on has when you were back in the employee role. Okay. Now, what in particular what did you want from your employer, and what do you think makes a good working environment?
I wanted them to just be fair. I wanted them, if I had a good idea, I wanted you to listen. Because usually, trust me, in that if you're the only Black person in like a whole floor, what have you, before I speak up, I am rehearsing it. I am going over it. I am looking at context. I'm making sure it's just not nonsense. So if I'm speaking to you, I'm not coming to you, speaking to you, I'm actually, prepared. So I would have liked my employers to listen, to treat me fairly, and to not just decide that I walked in the door and I've got brown skin, so I am X. Basics. It's just, can I have some fair equity? And we never called it equity in those days, but that's what it was. And if I'm a person who needs X more help over here, give it to me. If Sally needs anger management because she's always having fits, but everyone goes, oh, it's just Sally, she's in a bad mood, give her anger management. If I need more access to somebody senior because I never, give it to me.
Yeah.
Equity. That's what I wanted. But more, it's fairness. Can we just be fair? Everyone, if you've given me the role, why are you just treating me badly? I have had that where someone headhunted me into a really big role. Then he thought I was going to be his personal bitch. And when I wasn't, it all went pear-shaped. It was like, I'm not here just to serve you. I've got a whole big role, but I need you to do this. But I'm not your PA. I'm here to do this. He obviously didn't understand what the role was that I was here to do. So they think because they brought you in, you're chained to them.
No,
you know,
that's not how it works. That is not how it works. But no, I completely get what you mean. It is fairness, equity is I mean, it's not that much to ask, is it? You know, it's just being...
it's just treat me fair, because you know, if you speak to any person of, you know, of color or of any different ethnicity, if you're crap at the job, you're not getting the job. I don't expect you to give me the job because I'm Black.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm rubbish, don't give it. But you can't not give it to me because I'm Black. You can't say culture fit, because no one's saying that anymore. But we having back in the day,
very true.
We need to have a whole
culture.
We need to have a whole program on recruiters and recruiters their ways. Oh, culture fit, yeah. And then somebody told me, you know, I don't think that they could take the way that you operate. How do I operate? This is how I'm operating. Yeah, being myself. I'm operating confident, knowledgeable, blah, blah. They're expecting, looking at me, and they're expecting someone else, you know, I'm supposed to like...
No. What do you mean how you operate? You operate like a decent human being who knows her stuff.
Yeah, a decent who knows what they're doing. I said operating somebody who's got 10 years experience, that kind of operation. So I don't think they could, you know, it's like when they start doing that, culture fit, I'm not sure, la, 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 la.
Not okay.
Yeah,
not okay. Not okay.
So yeah, if you ever have an opportunity, do a, you know, a specialist one on recruit, because a recruiter's got a lot to answer for.
A lot to answer for as well. Yeah. But they are gatekeepers to it, aren't they? So yeah.
100%. Same as HR, but that's what I'm saying. Same as HR. HR know what it is, but their pay packet and their bonus is more important. So
Okay. So my next question is about it's the last one on this kind of segment before we move into sort of your proudest moments, right? So I know you don't really like the word diversity. So let's go for what does equity and inclusion look like to you?
It absolutely means that, one, you're looking at, I don't believe in blind CVs and taking off people's names. And I think that's nonsense. You know, if my name is Jabala, and I can do a job, I should get the job. And you just need to learn how to say my name, number one. Okay. I think it to me, it looks like employ people who are good at their job. Employ people who are going to bring something to your organization. Remember, cultures change. They're not rigid. It's not stone. It's fluid. So the more different people you come in, the more opportunity it has to grow organically. That's why this culture fit was just a washout. So it looks to me as everybody can come in, get a role and be employed because they're good at the role and they can bring something to the organization. They should be important. They should be able to be themselves. They should be able to speak, you know, the way they speak, whatever that is, well or not well. They should be able to speak to you openly about their culture that's different to yours. They should wear their hair how they want to, you know, notwithstanding you might have business casual or a dress code, dress how they want to. And that includes in traditional dress. Because I know a lot of Asian who never wore saris to work because they wore them. If you met them at work, they'd have sari on, but they couldn't wear one to work. What's that? Do you know what I mean? So that, and then in all the policies and the procedures, and this is in the REEB terms of reference, once you get them there and it's psychologically safe and they can have an idea that's crap and people go, nah, Barbara, that's no good. But that's the end of it. It's not put her on a pip because she doesn't know what she's doing because she had a bad idea.
Yeah, that's just,
you know, so it's safe enough, a safe environment. Then when it's open, how I get to the next level is open. What I have to do is documented. Expectations of me are all clear, and when I meet them, I get promoted. You know, another level of opportunities. I get, don't get me started on equity, ethnicity pay gap. I'm paid the same as my white counterparts. No brainer. No brainer. You know, so don't get me at the top of the range, but still think, you know, there's still a bit. When they say when I've had that conversation, they said, yeah, you are, you know, most senior that role, but there's still a few things lacking. And I just said, whiteness. This is just the whiteness. I can't do anything about whiteness. So that's what they're talking about. So that's the only reason why there would be a gap.
The bluntness of it. It's just like, I love it.
But that's who I am. That's what I'm saying to you. After a while, you think life's too short to do the tea dance
around.
Because I'm not white, isn't it? Because I can't see anything else.
Yeah,
I can't see.
You check all the other boxes. So what else?
And you check them, and they don't know how much we go through making sure we do speak well, we do dress well, we do have a good education, we do know what we're doing, we do know we extra hard work, we do all the context of whatever we have to do. So when I come to you, I absolutely know what I'm talking about. So if you're saying I'm just saying it's just whiteness then, because I don't see what else there is.
You don't see what else it could be.
Yeah. So that whole clear path to success is clear, it's open, it's transparent, and anybody who meets those things has an opportunity to go to the next level up. It can't be on who you meet in the pub. It can't be who you go home on the train with. It can't be because who looks and feels. You think, yeah, they look like me, so I'm going to promote them into my team because I need 10 versions of me. That, that kind of bias. None of that. It's just open. And if I want to go for that job, and if I don't get it, it's because I didn't meet the requirements.
Yeah.
Not because, Barbara, I'm not sure. I want clarity. I want I want transparency. I want you to be able to say to me, yeah, you didn't get that promotion because of A, B, C, D, and here is what we're going to do to help you get A, B, C, and D. And next year you can go for it because we're going to support you. Now that's what it's meant to be. I'm talking old school. That's what your job is meant to be.
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be. Why employ people and make their life a misery and crush them and hold them down? People lost sight of the benefits of people who are productive. When they're engaged, they're productive, they have innovation, they're giving more. There you are. Now we have social media, as I keep telling to lots of clients, there's one continuum. They are your clients, they are your employees, they are your critics, they are your PR ambassadors. It's the same thing. When I go out of work and I'm talking about, I hate my job and I hate this company because they're really people are not going to buy that product and think,
exactly.
My friend works there. She says, it's awful. I'm not buying from them. Exactly. So treat people properly. Basic stuff. Yeah. Basics.
But the thing is, I always say it is basic common sense stuff you'd think, but common sense isn't common, is it? So that's the problem that we have.
Well, isn't that a delicious, a paradox? It's not common, is it?
It's not common.
It's quite rare.
Very.
It's quite rare, sadly.
Sadly.
It's obvious. It's a no-brainer. You want people to be productive. You want them to.
I know it's not rocket science, is it? It's really not rocket science. So it's just like
people have been caught up in money and greed and position. And this is again why anybody who I've managed, I've always made it clear this role is important, this job is important, but so is your life.
Yeah.
So don't define yourself through this role. And even if you have a big role, I've had some big meaty roles, but they're big meaty roles. They're not my life, and it's not me.
Not you. Exactly. All right, I'm going to move us on quickly because we're coming to the endings. So I want to touch on some of your proudest moments. So can you tell us about your proudest moment? It could be work or personal or a career highlight.
I don't know. I'm always proud of myself. I'm proud of myself that I'm still in this industry, honestly, with all of the knockbacks and beating downs and psychological terror. I'm still here. I'm actually quite proud that, and it's an NLP technique that I learned I became a practitioner in 2004, so a long time ago, is reframing, analyzing. So reframing, you're familiar with reframing. So essentially,
I've done NLP a long time ago, so you'd have to reframe.
Yeah. So, it just means, okay, this is where you are now. If you went there, what would that look like? If you went there, what would that look like? If you went there, what would that look like? And I do that all the time. Because sometimes you don't have control of this thing here. So you have to, you can't move it. You have to move yourself, don't you? And you have to put yourself in a different frame. I'm really, I can do that all the time with everything. So I can keep on going and keep on growing. I'm one of life's learners. I'll be a lifelong learner. There's always something to learn. There's always something new. I don't think it ever stops. I think I'll be learning till I'm in my box. And I really enjoy that about myself. There's always something new to learn. So I'm interested in what's going on. But proudest moments, I haven't got one in particular. I was quite proud of the way that when this particular company flung me on the pip, I fought it tooth and nail, and I got people in, I dragged people in, I made them, when they gave me this pip, they just gave me this rubbish pip. I said I demanded smart objectives, and they were stumped. And I kept, they did 6 versions until I was satisfied. I went and read employment law. I chucked it all out. And in the end, I went through the pip, and I came out the other side, and I didn't leave, and they had to give me a promotion. And then literally 3 months later, my role moved somewhere else, and I said, "You've got to make me redundant," and they had to make me redundant. And I got a whole big wad of money.
Amazing! Well done to you.
That's what I'm saying. You got to have strategy.
You do.
You got to have strategy. So I'm blessed with a brain that thinks, okay, this isn't it.
Yeah.
It looks like it is now, but that's not the end. What else is going on? I think then more recently, I'm really proud to be a really outspoken. I advocate for racial equity. I don't care. I do it everywhere. I do it in motorsports.
I love it.
I do it in the judiciary. I'm just about to start a new one. I do it in PR and comms. I'm absolutely shameless with it, and I'm really delighted to. I'll take on that role because it's not, it doesn't make you quite unpopular. But I'm not here for popularity.
Yeah.
It goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think it's my duty, having endured 20 plus years of corporate terror at work. Yeah. Why am I opening that door to younger gen? No, absolutely not.
At least you're actually speaking out against it. So I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely, and I'll never stop. And until it's other way that people stop saying, people are saying like, it's okay. It's not too bad. And, I got a promotion. And, when people say they got a promotion, I always ask them about the process. Yeah. Because it's the process, isn't it? We know we know the talent is there. Yeah. It's the process.
It is
you jump through 50 hoops while your colleague is, jumping through 2.
Yeah.
So
it's fascinating. I'm glad that we have you as a voice in the industry for sure. So what are you on the industry and how it will evolve over the next few years? What do you think will change? Hopefully I think more racial, equity.
I think people, leaders in particular, they don't be fooled that they don't know. I've done literally half of maybe 3/4 of the board of the PRCA. They're all the top agencies. I had a chat with them. They've invited me in. I've done lots of racial equity awareness. I've done racial equity for leaders. I don't think that leaders in our industry don't know what the score is. I think they know what the score is. So I'm on to the next phase is discussing why you're making the decisions, because you're making those decisions. And then I want to discuss more about, what's going to happen if suddenly you had a psychological safe environment culture where people could just get on and where they could be productive and innovative. What does that mean to your business? What do you think? What's the bad thing you think is going to happen? Because if you don't think anything bad is going to happen, you should be doing it.
Yeah.
So I think it's people. What I'm really glad at is, me and lots of other voices have. This is why you have to just kind of focus and concentrate on it. I don't believe there's anybody out there who's leading an agency or is a head of comms and a team anyway who isn't aware of the facts. They know exactly what the facts are, even if they're not sure about how to get them, implement them and what this means to policies and procedures. That's fine. You come and talk to me. That's what I do as a consultant. But please there can't be anybody saying, "Oh, what's this? I'm not sure how it works. What's it about?"
Yeah,
I think 3 years.
We're way past that.
Yeah, we're 3 years. Absolutely. And I think we've all done a good job, not just me, we've all done a good job where we can, highlighting it and bringing it to the attention. So no one needs awareness anymore. Everybody really needs implementation. What are you going to do? I think that sort of might take another 3 years. But, there's some good signs. There's some good signs, people. I know the people that some of the agencies that I work with, even though they have their moments where they feel, they feel fairly bad and they feel uncomfortable, it is part of the journey. It is what it is.
And I said that as well. Even I was in I think it was a PR Week article where they were talking about, diversity. And there's something where I said, people have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's part of the part. Since we come to race, people get very uncomfortable. Oh, I'm not sure I can say this. Get very uncomfortable.
Why is that?
Avoid it.
They avoid it.
Deal with it.
They avoid it because it's baked into corporate society. That's why it's baked in. People just thought we were going to be there at the lower ranks, not asking for a pay rise, doing all the doggy work forever. That's why they're uncomfortable. They're thinking, hold on a minute. Oh, is that your role? That's why they're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because, somewhere deep down in there's some white supremacy, lingering in there. They think that they should always be at the top because of what they look like.
Yeah. Yeah. I see your point on that. For
sure. It's breaking down. So, but I always hear me say choice.
Yeah.
It could be tomorrow. It could be a completely different industry tomorrow if leaders wanted it to be. Yeah. And that's another thing to say. It is the way it is because people want it to be this way. Let's get there. So as soon as they don't want it to be that way, it won't.
They can change it. Yeah, exactly. So I was going to ask you, what key lessons have you learned throughout your career, and what advice would you give to young people of colour, particularly considering entering the industry?
I say, don't, it's what I mentioned earlier, don't think that sadly the experience of your white counterparts is going to be your experience, because it isn't. And it's beyond your control, and you don't have to do anything. It just by colour, by virtue of you being a different colour and a different ethnicity, it's going to be different. And I use that as a strength. Don't say, oh my God, I'm gonna get racism, it's gonna be bad. No. Realize they're gonna come at you differently. So you come at it differently. If they're gonna call you aggressive, deal with that. If there's gonna be microaggressions, deal with that. I think set up your stall in any role. So if you go into a role and you're talking, you're going through the talking stages, make sure you say to HE, what's your D&I policy? What do you do with things? What happens with bad behavior? What happens, grievance procedures? Find all that stuff out. Know what your protection is. Know what the processes are. So they'll know that it's on the radar. How do you deal with bullying and harassment? How do you deal with homophobia? What do you do about that when it appears in the workplace? Ask them those questions because they're for your benefit. And if they say, oh, we haven't got any policies, we haven't, well, you need to think about that.
Yeah, that should be a red flag.
Yeah. Unless they're going to help you introduce them, you're going to help them introduce them. You need to think about that. In this day and age, there can't be an environment where people aren't aware. That's what I'm saying. People are fully, HR have been cognizant of it forever. But, so think about that. Don't let the weight of, because, being Black or Asian or from a different ethnicity in our industry, it can weigh you down for some of the things that we've described, mentally. Find some joy in something, whether if you like writing, find some joy in that. Do some, even if it's not for work, write bits that make you do stuff that makes you happy, because you're not going to get all of that at work, and you need to counterbalance it. You need to, because that's when people start thinking, this is my whole, this is me. I'm beaten down at work. I don't get very good stuff. Everyone's on at me about the standard of my work. And they start to say that's how I should be defined. You say, no, that's just in one environment. When I'm out of work, I like cycling. I go to the gym. I go with my friends. Do find joy. If you can't find joy at work, ideally you can find joy at work, and if it's little 1% of joy you find at work, hold on to it and make the most of it. Yeah. If it's one conversation you have with one person once a week, that's your joy at work. Celebrate that and then find some joy out of work. Because we forget, as a people who have been oppressed forever, we forget about the joy.
The joy. That's so true. We got to, so your proudest moments about work. So that you spoke about, you said that you couldn't just choose one kind of proud moment. There's I think I'm definitely proud of still being in comms with all the kind of corporate terror. Yeah.
And I'm proud the way I've kind of worked my way through, I've used skills, used gifts, whatever it is, had a strategy. I'm really proud of all the stuff I've been doing recently, talking about racism. Yeah. Absolutely, because I'm just there for it 100%. But also I know that it's going to be tough and it's going to be hard, but I'm proud of the way that I will just take my skills and take all my, knowledge and treat it like a program or treat it like a project and make sure I get the best out of it. I present myself in the best possible light. I've interrogated it. I've interrogated myself. I think, the fact that I'm still here, and then I also proud that I legged myself up in not conventionally, I've got to a senior level, not because people were just promoting me because I had to go over there and do some of that and go over there and do some of that, but I've got to a senior level where I can just sit on my perch and talk about racism. Yeah. I'm just going to keep on talking about it. If I don't get any more work, it's fine. I'm happy to go and work in Tesco's, but I'm not going to stop talking about racism. Yeah, I'm not going to. So, and that's a privilege.
Absolutely. And that's a highlight for me, because I think, you have come through and you are now paving the way, essentially, and you haven't done the thing where some people get up and just think, okay, we'll just leave it for the rest of the generations to deal with. You're like, no, let's try and make it a smooth.
No, this is what it's about. It's not about me anymore. I'm not no saint, it helps. I get some work. That's lovely. But it's not about me. It's really about why would you let, it's like, why would you let your child go into danger? If it's dangerous there, why would you send your child? You wouldn't, would you?
Yeah, no, I
just wouldn't.
I get you on that. And then my other question was about your thoughts on how the industry would evolve for the next few years. Now, I was thinking from a DEI perspective, especially, and also AI. I think, AI is going to make a difference to the industry too. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that the skill, but even though there's racism in tech, look at all that Google stuff and Twitter stuff. And there's people I know of, because I'm involved with the tech company and I'm helping them, get their startup. And we talk a lot about AI and the bias in it. And, generally, even in facial recognition, there's issues.
I was going to say that. That's a massive
there's loads of issues, but there's enough of us now, young people who are interested in tech, who can get in and help make those changes. It's not a closed door. When Microsoft launched and Apple, it was just white boys in California, and then it was lots of their Indian counterparts. So it was really those two areas. Now there's hardly any black people, but there's more now. And now people are more aware of that. Skills and knowledge and brilliance can come in any shade, in any gender. I think people want that skills and brilliance. So but I think generally how we'll evolve is, I think what I mentioned was, leaders understand now. They know what racism is. They know what D&I is. They know what inclusion is. They know what psychological safety is. They know how to get it. So let's just look and see what they do. It's just choices.
It is choices.
It really is choices.
I agree. I think my next question after that was a couple key lessons that you've learned throughout your career that you wanted to share with us.
What did I say? I think the key lessons are, it's kind of back to the self-belief thing. Know that you are, you're worthy, that you're worthy. And I think I'd say that we deserve to be in every single space. There's no space that we don't deserve to be in. This is people of color, especially black women. Please, you deserve to be there. Absolutely. And if that's the one thing you take away, know that when you've got, this is why I don't have the imposter syndrome, because I've always believed that I deserve to be there. Absolutely. I've got the quals, I've got the experience, why shouldn't I be there?
Yeah.
So I'd say, absolutely that.
I agree with you. And then I moved into what was the advice you'd give young people of color considering entering the industry?
Yeah, and I'd say just aware of that, know that it's a different experience for your work counterparts, but it's not necessarily bad. When you're going in, because it's going to be different, bring up, pay gaps, bring up DEI, inclusion, psychological safety, bring up policies that deal with bullying and harassment, bring up, ask those things when you're going through the rounds. If they don't have those things as part of their policies and procedures in an organization, you have to think hard of how you're going to be treated, because it'd be great when that's not happening to you. It's when it does happen to you, what's the impact of that going to be? So I say use all the knowledge out there. Back in the day, there was no Google. No one was talking about it, but everyone is free to know all about the Equalities Act of 2010, all about, protected characteristics. Make sure you use that and make sure you define for yourself the best, whatever the role is, make sure it's in your image, it's what you want, and never forget that you deserve to be there. You absolutely deserve to be there. And if your gut's saying, not sure, move on.
Yeah. Move on. I think that's very sound advice. Thank you so much. And then into the subject that I like to discuss quite a lot, which is the mindset. So my questions are, how do you deal with internal mind war? And so how do you manage any self-limiting beliefs?
Yeah, and I think it's with the internal mind war, it's knowledge, it's awareness. Yes. I'm aware. I think I said, 20 plus years ago, it dawned on me that going to work was going to war. So, prepare yourself in how you dress, how you speak, you're ready for, at some point during the day, someone's going to do something. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to live on in fear, but just be, prepared that it might go a little bit left. And if you can see it coming, swerve it. So generally, I don't have a negative internal mindset, because I like to be aware of what's going on, and I like to think I've got control. And this is where we spoke about reframing, quite possibly, where if it's here and you can't change what's going on, you have to turn yourself fractionally. You just have to keep turning the frame away until you're in a place where you feel comfortable to operate. And I don't have self-limiting beliefs, because I am my own worst, I'm my own harshest critic. I'll analyze, I'll interrogate, I'll dig and delve. I'll say, was that a good move? Was that the right thing? Should you have done that? What will you do? And I learn from my mistakes. Yeah. So I don't limit myself because of my upbringing, which I mentioned earlier. So I think I can do anything I want to put my mind to. But, I'm going to have to get qualified and, pass exams and do it. I don't mind all of that. But I don't ever think, I was never brought up to think Black people don't do that, or Black people don't have those jobs, or Black people, I was never brought up that way. So I have no self-limiting beliefs, but I know there are limitations, and use our strategy, use our intuition, use our gifts, work your way through them.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's interesting too, because I never really looked at any jobs and thought, oh, black people don't do that. I don't think.
Yeah. Some people have, though. Some children have been. That's why they're like, oh my God, you're a blah. Because, in their world, we could never do that. And because I wasn't ever brought up there, thank you.
Yeah, no one's like, to be fair. I don't feel like I was limited in that sense at all. But that's a good point, actually.
No.
So looking back on your journey, would you do it all over again?
I would do some of it. I think I would do it all again, but the lovely finesse and articulation and, smooth way of telling people about themselves, I would have introduced that much earlier. I just used to go boof straight in. Like, what are you talking about? You're wrong. You're being racist. That's disgusting. Look how you're treating, and then,
I love to see their faces, though.
There was no future for me in that environment, clearly, after I told them about themselves, and then I just got up and left. So I would have introduced, the more tactical and more diplomatic approach earlier. Yeah. What else would I have done? I think I wrote when I did one of these things with somebody did a profile of me, I definitely would not have believed the disgusting things people were saying about, black people, what we couldn't do. I never believed them, but I let them affect me when you're young, when you're going through, I think, oh God, I know it's not true, but I don't see a way through. I let the wall be there and I thought, oh, what is the point? There's no way through. I definitely would have worked harder. I would, and just think, okay, there must be. It's all hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hindsight.
So I would do it again. There's a couple of companies, only with hindsight, I absolutely would not work for. I absolutely wouldn't go anywhere near there. And there's a couple of companies where it was pretty bad, but I would have hung on and tried a different approach and applied, rather than getting angry and getting disgusted and walking away, I would have maybe tried some alternatives. But this is all hindsight.
Yeah.
So I was definitely, I think back to the beginning, I was a natural communicator. English was my best subject. I love public speaking. I was destined to be in something like this.
Something like this. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I ended up in it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. So you would do parts of it, most of it over, but some of it you would tweak and maybe skip a few companies.
Yeah. If I had hindsight, absolutely, I would. I would.
Fair enough.
Take a different approach, but that's all the beauty of knowledge, isn't it?
It is. And it's also just part of our life and our experience, isn't it? It's what makes you, because now you're even more like, all right, I'm not having no more of this stuff. I've been through it all. And so
that's right. That's where I am now.
Yeah, it's great.
Not a minute. No, you're not
having a bar of it. I love it. And then what's the best and worst advice you've been given?
For comms.
Yes.
I mean,
or whatever else.
I think the worst advice was all those recruiters saying, oh, you have to operate a bit differently, or, culture fit, or, if you did this, then maybe they could do that nonsense. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So I didn't get that job. So that was really poor advice.
Yeah.
And the best, I think, what's been the best? I haven't really had very much solid advice. I think it might have been when I decided to myself, really, that I'm just gonna, and I was always pretty much me, but you have to hold, there was a theory you had to hold a little bit back for, you couldn't be completely black at work. You should hold a little bit back. And, when I decided I haven't got time for that, and the barber at home was a barber at work, was a barber in church, was a barber in the PTA meeting. Mm-hmm. I just decided that's working for me. That's what success looks like for me. Yeah. So that's kind of advice I give myself. Like, I haven't got the energy to be 4 different barbers, to make people feel comfortable. I'm just going to be me, and they got to work it out.
I like that. You just decided I'm just going to show up as my authentic self.
Yes, everywhere. It's so much easier. I mean, what did Oscar Wilde say? You can only be yourself. Everyone else is taken.
Everyone else is taken. Yeah. Very good. Very good. And then my last question for you is, do you have any rules that you've implemented along your career journey to kind of help you, that you'd like to sort of pass on as a couple nuggets of wisdom?
I think self-awareness, don't believe people's hype. I never believe my own hype. Lots of people do that. People are, hyping me up and saying you're fantastic and la 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 la. I've read some things like, Barbara is the leader in D&I and la la la. I said, okay, yeah. Tell you what, I'm here to make sure people aren't racist. Just be real. My feet are very very much down to earth. I don't believe all the hype, and have self-awareness. Have self-awareness in, what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve. Make sure there's some structure or strategy to it. Definitely. Don't just leave it out there and hope for the best. I never do that. Poof. Hope it turns out. I'm going to go, same as you would with the client. You're going to interrogate it, see where it's going to land, see what that looks like. Maybe, speak to people or get some feedback. I treat kind of my whole approach to work is definitely like a client account. Right. All the rigor that your client expects, why wouldn't you do it for yourself?
Interesting.
So I'd say it's that.
That's good advice. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. It's been great talking to you and hearing about.
Thank you so much. And keep up the good work, Ebony. It's great what you're doing. So,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And a big kudos and your flowers to you. Okay. Thank you for sharing. And can you tell people where they can find you if they want to follow you to connect?
Yeah. My main platform is LinkedIn. So please come and find me on LinkedIn. I'm always got commentary on what's going on LinkedIn. If you're interested in getting somebody into your organization just to have those conversations about, racial equity and inclusion and how it fits in with corporate policy, because the two aren't separate, it fits in with operations. Inclusion is part of operations. Definitely hit me up and I'll come and chat to them. And look out on LinkedIn probably. I've just started working with a couple of tech companies, and we're going to be doing some really interesting things where it's going to be tech, obviously, but the chap who's the founder is amazing. He's a black guy and he's really super brainy, but he's got a really good approach. And everything we want to do is to help society be better, which is what we think tech is about. So I've literally just started working that. So please check me on
I will look out for that.
Twitter as well, but generally in LinkedIn. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about that because there's so many things that you can do. There's not enough black tech founders he doesn't want to try and be white. He doesn't want to make it Apple.
Yeah.
He wants it to be how organically, if you had these people in the room, what would the organization be like? It didn't necessarily look like that, would it? It would look like this so I'm loving that. So
good. So you heard them, people. Go and check her out on LinkedIn and check out some of the latest projects that she's got coming up. And stay tuned because I will be back with some more wonderful people from the world of comms. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.